Hello, everyone. Greetings from Berlin. I'm going to speak a little bit on DIDs and blockchain and why this is actually a good idea. This is the track for applications for blockchains. So DID is something you might have heard before. It stands for Decentralized Identifiers. And this is a part of your digital identity. And the question is then, why do we need stuff like that? Why do people think about that? Why do people work on it? Why is it connected to blockchain, and how is it connected to blockchain? So as I said, it's about digital identity. So when you think about identity, then you probably think of something like your passport or your driver's license and stuff like that. But if you really look closer to it, that's not your identity. This is just credentials, which are issued by some company or by some government, and they are part of your identity, but they are not really your identity. You might even think of your name. That's also not your identity. Your identity is your name and your face and your fingerprint together with those credentials. And when you think of digital identity, then you have to really separate between two things. One thing is an identifier. This is something that identifies you. That could be, for example, your face, and credentials, which show certain abilities or rights or duties of yourself. That could be your driver's license. So how are they connected? They are connected in the physical world by putting a picture of your face on your driver's license, so that anyone who wants to verify your driver's license can look at your driver's license and then look at your face, and they say, obviously, the same person, and when it's the same person, then this person can obviously drive. So you have two things. You have the identifier on the one side, and you have the credential on the other side. So as I said, credentials are normally issued by companies or governments or something like that. And identifiers are not. Identifiers are your face, your fingerprint, your name, and no one gave you, well, maybe your parents gave you your name, but no one actually gave you your face. You make it yourself. It's by default decentralized. While the credential is a little bit centralized because it has to be issued by a trusted entity, right? So those two things have to be separated. Okay, now, in the physical world, we all understand the concept of identifiers. They are made by a person themselves, fingerprint, face, stuff like that. When you look into the digital world, especially the digital world in the last 20 years, when we had the Web 2.0, then you find we actually do have a problem with identifiers, because identifiers are something like username and password pairs or so. And they are, well, you can choose your password, but in fact, it has to be somehow according to some rules. And those rules are made by a company again. And then also you can't really freely choose your identifier. It's not, it's made through rules by companies actually. And it is 100% shared with companies. If you think about Facebook or Google or all the other nice online outlets that you have out there, you basically share your password and your username with those guys. They can actually impersonate you, right? They have the same access to your password and to your username as you have, which is not the same thing in the physical world, right? So in the physical world, your face is your face. And if someone else has your face, then it's your twin brother. But that's another story. And that's an important thing. So actually in sovereignty over our identity or our identifiers, we actually made a step back in the digital world. It's getting worse, not better, right? In the physical world, it's actually much better. And this is where DIDs, decentralized identifiers, actually come in. They are a way to build your own identifier on your own computer. So those things consists of basically a public part and a private part. And the private part is you hopefully never share with anyone. It is on your computer and nowhere else. And the public part is something like an address, which can be openly shared. the public part and the private part work together as such that you can sign any message with your private key, and then anyone can use your public key to decode it and read it, and then you have signed it, and it's obviously from you because no one else but you has your private key. And also people can send messages to you, which can only be read by you because they can encode them with your public key because that's publicly known, and only you with your private key can decode them and read them. So this is why we need those things like decentralized identifiers. What does that have to do with the blockchain? So basically, DIDs work fine without a blockchain. That's totally okay. But if you start linking them to credentials, which you probably want to do after a while, because DID is just good for signing, but what's possible is that you can link those credentials, digital credentials like a digital driver's license or a digital passport or a digital library card or a digital credential of you have visited the university and now are a master of something. Those credentials can be linked to those DIDs. So basically, it is like putting a picture of your face on the credential, but a little bit more safer. And this is how those verifiable credentials, which is also a standard like DIDs, and DIDs work together. And this is a huge and powerful tool if you use them together, because you can basically have your digital wallet, like you have your physical wallet, with all your credentials in there, and then you can decide when to show the credential to whom and for what reason. And this brings a lot of sovereignty to you, because right now you also have some credentials. Of course, if you behave on a social media platform, then you are generating credentials, but you don't hold them. They are held by the company, and they can use them. Try to register with WhatsApp. If you try to register with WhatsApp, you have this nice button, sign in with Facebook, which means that Facebook and WhatsApp are going to speak about your credentials. They're exchanging them without you even being involved. You can't control anything. You don't know what they say about you. You don't know what WhatsApp knows about your Facebook behavior after they exchange the credentials, right? This is, I think, something where the sovereignty of the people really ends. So this is something we have to work against. And the solution for that is that you have DIDs and that you have verifiable credentials, which can be issued by a social media platform, but then they go into your possession. You have a digital wallet where you store your digital credentials, and if you want to show them, you sign them again with your decentralized identifier, which is also stored in your digital wallet, and then you can send this away to someone who is interested in seeing your credential. And then this person which receives the credential can be absolutely sure that this credential is signed by you, so it's you talking to him, and they can be sure that this credential is signed by an entity which the verifier, the receiver of the credential gets. And so he can be absolutely sure that it's A, you, and B, that you have the right to do something or the ability to do something. And this is signed also by a person who hopefully has a DID and is in the trusted set of entities of this receiver. So this is basically what we have been doing at KILT for the last couple of years. The question is still, why do we need a blockchain? The blockchain is something that you need for the validity of those credentials. The validity of a credential is pretty important. For example, if you have a driver's license, then this driver's license can be taken away from you because you were speeding or drinking alcohol or whatever, and the police can come and say, give me your driver's license, you can't drive it anymore. In a digital credential, this is really, really complicated because you can always keep a copy, right? I can copy anything digital. You can't take away anything digital from me. It is always there. And so you need something where the validity of all the credentials is actually stored. And this shall not be a central entity. If this would be a government or if this would be a company, then we would actually make the world worse than it was before, because then this entity could actually go to anyone and say, now you have to pay me $5, or otherwise I will just delete your credentials or make them invalid. So this has to be in the hands of something which is totally free, which is totally permissionless, and which belongs to no one. And this is what the permissionless blockchains actually provide. This is why we use the KILT blockchain to hold validity of credentials in a blockchain, and then the rest of the digital identity world works with DIDs and verifiable credentials. I hope that wasn't too complicated for an afternoon. If there's any questions and there's the possibility to ask questions, I'm totally happy to take questions.